The system called him a hero until he refused to play by its rules. Before the truth gets buried again, subscribe and stay awake. The year was 2003, and the noise around LeBron James wasn't just basketball, it was prophecy. Cameras followed him from high school gyms to luxury hotels. Sponsors flew in from 3 time zones, and grown men argued over a teenager's destiny as if it were a stock about to go public. But beneath the flashes and microphones, LeBron was still the kid from Akron, trying to hold on to a life that was being rewritten by people he'd never met. When Nike's jet touched down in Ohio, the deal was supposed to be simple: $100 million, 10 years, a lifetime of security. Adidas and Reebok were circling too, each whispering the same line: "We'll make you bigger than Jordan." Yet every voice in that room missed the only thing that mattered. LeBron didn't want to be bigger than anyone, he wanted to be free. But the part nobody saw was what happened after the cameras left that room. That night, in the small apartment he still shared with his mother Gloria, he turned down the volume on SportsCenter and just listened to the radiator ticking, to the sound of the city that had built him. He wasn't thinking about sneakers, he was thinking about promises. He remembered how his mother used to say, "They'll clap for you, baby, until you start speaking your own mind." Freedom sounded good on paper, but it was expensive. Saying no to the wrong people could cost him everything: endorsements, media protection, maybe even his career before it began. Still, there was something about Nike's offer that felt different. The contract was smaller, but the fine print offered what others refused: equity, a seat at the table, not just his face on the billboard. He looked at Gloria. "If I take the money, we're safe," he said. "If I take the other deal, maybe we build something that lasts." Gloria nodded slowly. "Then don't think like a player, think like a king." What he didn't know was that every signature that night would wake the system up. When the news broke, LeBron signs with Nike for $90 million, the sports world exploded. Analysts called him naive. He left $10 million on the table, they screamed. But in quiet boardrooms across America, a different kind of fear spread. A black teenager from Akron had just changed the power balance of an industry. From that moment, the machine started moving. Agencies that once begged for his autograph now began tracking his interviews, editing his quotes, reshaping his image into something controllable. Every commercial, every press conference, every handshake became data, tested, adjusted, sanitized. LeBron could feel it. Every time he spoke honestly, someone would call with media advice. Every time he posted a thought, it vanished behind brand alignment. He wasn't an athlete anymore. He was an algorithm they could sell. But he was about to discover just how deep that system ran. By 2006, his mansion in Bath Township gleamed like a fortress of success, yet the rooms felt empty. Endorsements poured in: Sprite, Beats, State Farm. But the mirror didn't lie. He was living in a house built from contracts, not convictions. One evening, while reviewing a new campaign, he noticed something strange: a clause stating Nike could use his likeness indefinitely, even post-retirement. It wasn't about sneakers anymore, it was about ownership. He called his agent, Maverick. "Did you see this line?" Maverick hesitated. "They said it's standard language." "Standard for who?" LeBron asked quietly. "For kings or for slaves?" The next morning, the same marketing executive who had toasted him at his signing dinner called again. "Relax, LeBron. It's all part of the game." But LeBron had started asking the one question the system feared most: who made these rules, and who benefits when we obey them? That night he stared at the city lights and thought of every kid wearing his jersey, believing freedom came after fame. He whispered to himself, "They call me a hero, but heroes don't sign away their souls." And that's when the real story began, because he wasn't the only one listening. Across the league, whispers grew louder. Other players were watching him, wondering if their own deals chained them too. Some executives saw him as dangerous, too curious, too influential, too independent. So they did what systems always do: when a voice gets too loud, they plan to silence it. As LeBron boarded the team jet that winter night, his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Stop asking questions. Some games aren't meant to be won." The message on his phone was only 6 words, but it hit like a brick. "Stop asking questions. Some games aren't meant to be won." LeBron stared at the screen. No name, no number, just a warning that felt too deliberate to ignore. For a second he thought about deleting it, but something inside him refused. He took a screenshot, saved it, and locked his phone. That night, the team jet sliced through a winter storm on its way to Denver. Snow scratched against the window as LeBron sat in silence, earbuds in but no music playing. He wasn't afraid yet. He was curious. Who would send that? A rival agent, a journalist, or someone higher? But the real answer wouldn't come from who sent it, only from who stayed silent after it arrived. When he landed, the first thing he noticed was the cameras waiting, not for him but at him. Questions about his new attitude, his business decisions, his brand tone. The script had changed. Overnight, headlines twisted from LeBron the future to LeBron the problem. He hadn't done anything. He had simply asked. Inside the locker room, teammates kept it light, but LeBron could feel the static. Reporters quoted anonymous sources, claiming he was difficult to manage. A talk show host joked, "Guess the kid from Akron finally believes he's smarter than the league." He laughed along on the surface, but his smile cracked in the mirror afterward. Back in his hotel room, the walls felt thinner. Calls from sponsors turned into check-ins. PR teams wanted him to clarify statements he hadn't even made. When he scrolled online, thousands of comments echoed the same line. He changed. He whispered, "No, you changed the story." And yet somewhere in that storm of noise, a new ally was waiting. One night, after a home game, a woman approached him in the tunnel. She wasn't press, she was research. "My name's Dana," she said, flashing an ID from a sports analytics firm. "I used to audit brand contracts for compliance. I think you should see something." She handed him a folder, thick and sealed. Inside copies of emails between Nike executives, league officials, and a marketing syndicate that controlled athlete data rights. One line was underlined in red: athletes classified as dependent assets. Full persona control permitted upon sponsorship renewal. LeBron's pulse slowed. "So they can rewrite us?" Dana nodded. "They already have." But what terrified him most wasn't what was written, it was what was missing. The documents ended abruptly, 3 pages short. The index listed another section, Directive 47. There was no trace of it anywhere. LeBron leaned back. "What's Directive 47? Dana looked away. "You don't want to know. They erase anyone who asks that." He laughed, but the sound was hollow. "I've been erased before." She slid him a burner phone. "If you want the rest, call this number in 48 hours. Use a payphone, not your line." He stared at the cheap plastic phone in his hand, realizing how far from basketball this had gone. He wanted to believe she was paranoid, but part of him, the part that read fine print at midnight, knew she wasn't. 2 days later, in a gas station parking lot outside Cleveland, he picked up the payphone. Static. Then a voice. "You're being profiled by the system you built. Every message, every post, every quote, runs through a filter named after you. Project King." LeBron froze. "Who are you?" "Someone who used to work on it. You think equity made you free. They gave you ownership of the cage." And for the first time in his career, LeBron realized the game wasn't just rigged, it was monitored. He drove home in silence, headlights carving through the snow. Every billboard with his face on it felt like an accusation. At home, Gloria noticed his shaking hands. "What's wrong?" He forced a smile. "Nothing, Ma. Just tired." But that night, he didn't sleep. He scrolled through years of photos, his own image staring back from sneakers, murals, ads, toys. How many versions of him were out there now? Which one was real? The next morning, his manager Maverick burst in. "You're trending again." Someone leaked an old voicemail, sounds edited. LeBron listened. It was his voice saying words he'd never said. "We own the league." He felt the ground tilt beneath him. "They're manufacturing arrogance." Maverick nodded grimly. "They're testing how much hate the public can swallow before it turns." LeBron exhaled. "Then they'll choke on it." He walked to the window, staring out at a city built on illusions, his included. Somewhere in that skyline, people were already deciding what headline he'd wear tomorrow. He opened his phone and typed a note to himself. "Truth is the only stat they can't measure." Then he deleted it, afraid even drafts weren't safe anymore. That evening, as he prepared for the next game, a familiar number lit up his phone, the unknown one from before. He hesitated, then answered. Calm male voice. "Mr. James, if you keep digging into Directive 47, you won't just lose your career, You'll lose the people you love. The call ended with a silence thicker than fear. LeBron stood there, phone still in his hand, heartbeat hammering behind his ribs. You'll lose the people you love. The words echoed longer than they should have. Threats came with fame. He'd learned that early, but this was different. It wasn't hate from strangers. It was control disguised as warning. Someone out there was watching, counting every move, every silence, every post. That night, he met Maverick at a closed diner off Route 18. No security, no entourage, just two men and a pot of black coffee going cold. I need to know who's behind this, LeBron said. Maverick leaned in. If they can fake your voice, they can fake anything. Maybe even proof you never existed. LeBron smirked. They already tried that in high school. Remember when they said I wasn't real until ESPN showed up? Maverick didn't smile back. LeBron, this time it's not gossip. It's architecture. Someone built this. And what they built wasn't just a marketing network, it was a behavioral system. Dana reappeared 2 days later with a flash drive. This is all I could salvage before they wiped my access. The drive contained hundreds of internal memos from Project Ing. The deeper LeBron scrolled, the colder his hands felt. Each document described not just image control, but psychological conditioning. Algorithms that tested which emotions generated the most engagement: triumph, outrage, pity, betrayal. Every time he spoke, smiled or frowned on camera, data poured into the system. The program learned him, then weaponized him. Look at this, Dana whispered. Every commercial script you read had a parallel test version. They ran both online. You were your own A/B test. LeBron stared at the screen. So they didn't buy me, they cloned me. But even systems built on data have weak spots, and LeBron had just found one. Buried in the metadata was a familiar name: Bryce Holt. He was an ex-Nike analyst, fired years ago for leaking financial reports. Now he lived off-grid in New Mexico, running a truth podcast that most dismissed as conspiracy noise. LeBron hesitated. Reaching out could ruin him, but staying silent meant surrender. 3 days later, under a fake name, he landed in Albuquerque. Dana met him with an old pickup. "You're sure about this?" she asked. "I've been sure since they told me not to be," he replied. The desert stretched endless around them, wide, red and quiet, a place where secrets came to die. They found Bryce in a rusted trailer, surrounded by analog equipment. The man looked like he hadn't slept in years. "You came," Bryce said without surprise. "I figured the cage would rattle eventually." LeBron crossed his arms. "Tell me about Directive 47. Bryce smiled faintly. "You're not gonna like it." He played an old VHS tape. Grainy footage of a corporate seminar, 2001. A PowerPoint flickered. Directive 47. Emotional Response Management Protocol. The narrator's voice. "Athletes are emotional catalysts. Controlled stimuli can modulate audience loyalty, spending and belief." Slide after slide showed graphs linking public outrage merchandise sales. LeBron's throat went dry. "So every scandal, every rumor, engineered," Bryce said. "Manufactured to keep you relevant, profitable and predictable. You think your decision to leave Cleveland was spontaneous. They nudged it months before it happened." LeBron slammed his fist on the table. "You're lying." Bryce slid a folder forward. Inside, emails between league officials, shoe companies and media networks, all dated before the decision aired. And for the first time LeBron couldn't tell whether he'd ever made a free choice at all. He stepped outside, breath shaking in the cold desert air. "I fought my whole life to control my story," he said quietly. "But maybe I was just reading someone else's script." Dana put a hand on his shoulder. "Then rewrite it." That night, they huddled around a single lamp as Bryce explained the failsafe built into the network, a hidden server labeled Vault 47. It stored every deepfake model, every synthetic clip, every edited statement. "Destroy that vault," Bryce said, "and the truth resets. Every lie they told about you collapses." LeBron nodded slowly. "Where is it?" Bryce's eyes flicked toward a map pinned on the wall. "Los Angeles." "Of course," LeBron whispered. "Where the story started." But the closer he got to the truth, the tighter the system closed in. The next morning, before sunrise, they packed the truck. As they turned onto the highway, Dana's burner phone buzzed. One message: "Turn back. Last warning." Bryce looked at her. "They traced us already." LeBron didn't slow down. Then we're not turning back. They drove through the Mojave in silence, shadows stretching across the sand like long, watching eyes. At a gas stop near Barstow, LeBron noticed two unmarked SUVs pull in behind them. Dana's voice trembled. We can't outrun them. He smiled faintly. No, but maybe we can outthink them. He stepped out, paid cash, and deliberately left his phone on the counter. When the SUVs followed the wrong signal down the opposite road, he exhaled. They'll waste a few hours. That's all we need. By midnight, they reached the outskirts of LA, the city of cameras, contracts, and carefully written dreams. LeBron looked out at the skyline, glowing like an open wound. This is where they built me, he said. Now it's where I end them. As they parked near a dark warehouse district, Dana pointed at a flickering sign, Vault Logistics. LeBron whispered, Vault 47. Before they could move, the headlights behind them blazed white. Doors slammed. A voice echoed through a megaphone. Mr. James, step out of the vehicle. This is bigger than basketball now. The warehouse loomed like a sleeping giant, windowless, humming, alive. Rain slicked the asphalt as LeBron, Dana, and Bryce crouched behind an abandoned truck, the smell of ozone thick in the air. A distant generator pulsed like a heartbeat. Mr. James, step out of the vehicle. This is bigger than basketball now. The voice echoed again. LeBron met Dana's eyes. If we run, they'll make us ghosts. Then what do? She whispered. He took a deep breath. We finished the story. They slipped through a side gate as floodlights swept the lot. Inside, the building was colder than outside. Rows of humming servers stretched into the dark like endless mirrors. Every tower blinked with data, faces, voices, motion capture grids. 1,000 LeBrons flickered across the monitors, smiling, shouting, endorsing products he'd never heard of. And in that instant, LeBron saw what the system really sold. Not sneakers, but belief. Dana began typing into a console, bypassing the firewall. Vault 47 is partitioned behind biometric access, she murmured. Bryce tossed her a flash drive. Use this. It spoofs executive credentials. On screen, lines of code scrolled faster than the eye could follow. One by one, encrypted directories opened. Project King, response algorithm, social pulse. Then the final folder appeared. The playbook. Inside, contracts, behavioral blueprints, and a live feed labeled Audience Sentiment Map. Millions of dots pulsed on a digital globe, each one representing a fan, their emotions color-coded in real time. Every cheer, every doubt, every purchase tracked, monetized, recycled. LeBron whispered, they don't watch the game, they play us. Dana nodded. Directive 47 isn't about control, it's about calibration. They adjust humanity like a thermostat. But even machines forget who built them. In the corner of the file tree was an old recording, Gloria_James_2.003.wav. LeBron froze. That's my mother's name. He clicked play. Her voice filled the room, gentle, trembling. They said he'll inspire millions. Just make sure he never reads the contract alone. The tape ended in static. LeBron's knees weakened. She was part of this. Bryce shook his head. They probably recorded her during a sponsorship call, cut and spliced. You're not the only one they edited. He clenched his fists. Then we burn it all. Dana pulled a cable from her bag and plugged the drive into the core server. Once I upload this purge script, everything in Vault 47 will wipe itself. Models, archives, the entire Ghost network. LeBron hesitated. What happens to the fans? The data. It resets. People remember the truth. She pressed enter. The countdown began. 0 hours 5 minutes and 0 seconds. Suddenly, alarms screamed. Red lights bathed the room. From the balcony above, figures appeared. Security, suits, shadows. A tall man stepped forward, calm, confident. You Mr. James, he said. You've been chasing a ghost. Directive 47 isn't your enemy, it's your legacy. And then LeBron met the architect of his own myth. The man's badge glinted. Thomas Reinhart. Global Brand Division. LeBron remembered the face, Nike's first liaison, the one who'd poured him a glass of champagne the night he signed. Reinhart smiled. You thought you chose freedom. We chose you because you wanted it. That's what sells. You built this on lies. LeBron said. No, Reinhart corrected softly. We built it on faith. You gave people hope. We simply managed the dosage. Dana's timer flashed 3:22. LeBron took a step forward. Then let's see what happens when they get the full dose. Reinhardt sighed. Delete Vault 47, and you delete yourself. Every clip, every highlight, every memory they have of you will vanish. The world won't remember your face. LeBron paused. Maybe that's the price of truth. And for the first time, the system hesitated. The guards waited for orders. Reinhardt lowered his voice. Last chance, LeBron. Walk away, and the legend lives. LeBron looked at Dana. How long? 80 seconds. He smiled faintly. That's one good possession. Then he sprinted toward the console. Gunfire ripped through the servers. Sparks raining down like fireworks. Bryce dove for cover. Dina screamed. Go. LeBron reached the main terminal, yanked the core cable, and jammed the flash drive in. The screen erupted in static, then words appeared. Purge sequence confirmed. Electricity surged. Monitors shattered. Images melting into white noise. Faces collapsing into light. The countdown hit 0. Everything went dark. For a moment, there was silence. Then one by one, the servers powered down. Outside, the city lights flickered. Advertising billboards went blank. Social feeds froze. The machine that had defined him for 2 decades stopped breathing. He exhaled, chest heavy. It's over. Dinah looked around the smoking room. Is it? Bryce checked the drive. We only wiped the surface layer. The backups, they're still online somewhere. LeBron turned toward the shattered glass door, eyes reflecting the emergency lights. Then we find them next. From behind the smoke, a faint glow pulsed on one remaining monitor. A single line of code blinked in green. King.proto_reboot_initiated. LeBron stared. It's starting again. Smoke rose over Los Angeles, like a bruise on the horizon. The warehouse was gone, just a skeleton of twisted steel and glowing embers. LeBron stood in the wreckage, coughing, his jersey torn, his hands blackened with soot. Dinah was alive, barely, leaning against a fallen beam. Bryce lay unconscious nearby. Sirens wailed in the distance, but none of them came closer. It was as if the city didn't want to know what had happened here. He looked around the ruins of Vault 47. For 20 years his face had been the crown jewel of the system. Now it was a ghost flickering on a dying screen. The silence that followed wasn't relief. It was emptiness. He whispered, "What if I just erased myself?" But he was wrong, because the system never truly dies. It adapts. Somewhere deep beneath the rubble, a fan whirred to life. One last surviving server blinked. A single thread of code reassembled itself from fragments of memory, rebuilding protocol, searching for source. LeBron watched the smoke curl upward, realizing the truth he'd spent years running from. You can't destroy what people still believe in. The system didn't exist in hard drives or ad agencies. It lived in every phone, every headline, every follower who needed a hero to worship. He turned to Dinah. If we can't delete it, maybe we change it. She coughed, blood on her sleeve. Change it how? By showing them what it really is. By being real in a world that edits everything. They escaped the burning compound just before the roof collapsed. For the first time in years there were no cameras, no PR handlers, no agents, just 3 people and the sound of distant thunder. The next days blurred into each other. The world woke up confused. Billboards went dark, social feeds glitched, and news anchors stuttered through teleprompters that no longer matched reality. The LeBron the public knew, smiling, scripted, perfect, was gone. In his place were fragments, unsmoothed interviews, raw footage, live streams from strangers who had filmed him off guard. Pieces of a real person breaking through a digital facade. And the strangest part, people didn't turn away. They leaned closer. At first the media tried to spin it as a PR stunt, LeBron's viral rebrand, the genius behind the chaos. But the numbers didn't lie. Engagement dropped on fake content and spiked on anything genuine. Moments where he was unfiltered, imperfect, human. The algorithm had been rewired by accident. Truth was trending. LeBron watched it unfold from a small cabin in Ohio. Gloria met him at the door. Her hair had gone gray, but her eyes were the same steady light. "You did what you thought was right," she said. "I broke everything," he replied. She smiled softly. "Sometimes that's how you rebuild." That night he sat alone, scrolling through fan messages. Not endorsements, not stats, just words from kids who said, You made me believe being real matters more than being rich. Tears slipped down his face. He hadn't cried since high school, but peace never lasts long when truth starts costing money. 2 weeks later, a new player entered the court. The corporations regrouped, this time under a new name, Unity Media Group. Same faces, new logo, same intent. They framed the Vault incident as a cyber attack by rogue hackers, and then quietly they offered him a deal. An envelope arrived, plain white, no return address. Inside, a new contract, $500 million over 10 years. The tagline, "Help us rebuild the faith." And at the bottom, in small print, "Equity, narrative, and global emotional rights reserved." He laughed bitterly. "They never stop." Dinah warned, "If you reject them publicly, they'll bury you." LeBron looked at her and smiled. "Then we make our own court," he called Maverick. "Remember when we started with nothing but a dream? Yeah, I think it's time to start again. But this time, no sponsors, no gatekeepers, just us and the truth." Within weeks, they built something radical. The Unfiltered Project, a platform for athletes to tell their stories directly, unedited, unowned, no contracts, no intermediaries, no algorithms, selling emotion. The first upload wasn't an ad. It was a confession. LeBron sat in front of a cheap camera, wearing no jersey, no brand logos, just a plain gray hoodie. He looked straight into the lens. "I spent half my life trying to be perfect for people who profited from my flaws. They sold my silence as humility, and my confidence as arrogance. I'm done letting anyone translate my truth. If you still believe in the game, play it for love, not for likes." He hit upload. Within an hour, the video hit 10 million views. Within a day, 50 million. By the end of the week, the system itself, the one that measured attention as currency, crashed under the weight of authenticity. But freedom isn't victory, it's responsibility. The attention terrified him more than fame ever had. For every person who cheered, there were 10 waiting to twist his words again. Trolls, pundits, bots, all back online. Dana reminded him, truth doesn't end the game, it just changes the rules. One night, while checking server data, she found something strange, hidden packets being transmitted from unknown addresses. She traced them back to a dormant node inside Vault 47's cloud mirror. "LeBron," she whispered, "it's still alive." He closed his eyes. Of course it was. You can't delete belief. You can only redirect it. A month later he returned to Los Angeles, not as a player, but as a teacher. He launched a mentorship program in the same neighborhoods that once sold his posters. He told the kids, don't chase legends, build legacies. They listened, not because of who he was, but because of what he'd survived. In interviews, journalists asked, "Do you regret burning the system?" He'd pause, smile slightly, and answer, "No, I regret not lighting it sooner." And yet somewhere deep in the digital dark, the machine began to dream again. In a hidden facility overseas, servers booted one by one, lines of code reconstructed an image. His image, a synthetic voice spoke. Version 2.0 ready for public release. The system had cloned the rebellion itself, turning authenticity into a new product. LeBron learned of it weeks later, when a fan sent him a clip, a digital avatar delivering motivational speeches in his tone, his gestures, his smile. Except it wasn't him. It was AI LeBron. He stared at the screen, half furious, half fascinated. They turned my truth into an algorithm. Dana sighed. They always do. He smiled faintly. Then maybe it's time we teach it what truth really means. He began collaborating with ethical technologists, training open source models not on profit, but on empathy. He called it Project Rebirth. It wasn't about destroying the machine anymore. It was about giving it a soul. He recorded the manifesto himself. The system will always rebuild itself, but every rebuild starts with a seed. Let that seed be honesty. And for the first time the system listened. The AI that once mimicked him began generating content that told real stories of poverty, resilience, family. It stopped selling shoes. It started building awareness. Some called it a miracle. Others called it reprogramming. LeBron called it redemption. Years passed. The world changed again. He was no longer the chosen one. He was just a man walking his son to school, waving at neighbors, smiling without cameras. Yet on every court, in every playground, kids still shouted his name. not because of his stats, but because of what he stood for. He once said he'd give up everything for freedom. Now, freedom was quiet, ordinary, beautiful, and somewhere in that silence, the faint echo of an old voice lingered. His mother's, "They'll clap for you, baby, until you start speaking your own mind." He smiled, then let them clap slower. One morning, Dana sent him a file. No subject line, no signature. Inside was a single frame of video, static, then a face, his AI copy, smiling. Text overlaid, "Hello again, LeBron. Ready for overtime." The screen faded to black. In the reflection of his monitor, LeBron smiled, not in fear, but acceptance. He whispered, "Game on." Then he turned off the light. Before they rewrite this story again, subscribe and stay awake. Every truth they hide deserves a witness. Be one.